All right, go ahead, Luke.
All right. Welcome to the user access and setting up sites in TOPSpro Enterprise, presented by Tyler Fu from CASAS. Please remember to remain muted unless asking a question. We may mute your microphone if you are not speaking. All videos are turned off upon entry to save a little bit of bandwidth, but if you feel free to go ahead and turn them on. This session will be recorded and posted on Whova after. With that, please welcome Tyler Fu.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are around the country. My name is Tyler, and I will be the trainer today for this workshop. I work in tech support, and this is actually my first summer institute. It was supposed to be last year. Of course, you guys know what happened. So I want to go over the structure of this training. It is 1 hour. We will be a little strict on time since there's other workshops going on. I will have half of the training on PowerPoint and going over concepts. And the second half will be a live demo. Having said that, we can jump into it now, unless you guys have any questions. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right, guys. So this training is called User Access and Setting Up Sites. We're just gonna start with the very basics here. We're gonna talk about what are access rights. So access rights are the permissions an individual user on TE has the capability to list, view, create, update, and delete records. Access rights are common to most operating systems such as Windows and Mac and other large database programs used today. You may have ran into access rights one time or another using Windows or Mac without knowing that they're access rights. So without access rights, anyone that has an account on TE can edit imperative data and affect its accuracy. So there are no limitations for users if there is no access rights. Users have the freedom to do anything, which is kind of bad because we can't check on these users. It would be really unorganized because we're not aware of all these changes that are being made in the database. Also, with larger agencies, all personnel would be able to see data from different sites, which leads to less confidentiality. And pretty much that's what may happen. Any fans of The Office? It's a pretty funny show. So if we have access rights, how do we organize rights for users? We have what's called access groups. So access groups are users who has the same set of permissions in TE, and Delfino loves The Office. Really funny show, by the way. Users can have individual rights depending on what role you want your user to be in. Looking at this picture right here. So if we take a look at roles, we can have individual access rights depending on what role we want to give to users. And also the same can be said for groups. So access groups can have roles also. But in TE, we will see that in the next live demo, we're going to see that there are individual access rights available and also groups. So we can create access groups and then put users into these access groups. If we figure out what role your user or your user group will be part of in TE, that role will be dictated by rights. And vice versa, the rights will be dictated by the roles also. So they go hand in hand. Okay, guys, any questions on that? In TE, we can separate access groups in two categories: CASAS-controlled access groups and agency-controlled access groups. CASAS reserve use of CASAS-controlled access group names and rights. So what are some examples of CASAS-controlled versus agency-controlled access groups? So CASAS-controlled has ET proctors, ET coordinators, ET proctors and coordinators, ET techs, which we'll get into a little bit more later, data managers. And what are some examples of agency-controlled access groups? Basic TE access, TE basic access, TE admin access, and your own unique access group. And you can customize it however you want. That's based on the data manager and how they want to do that. In TE, there are two different package levels. So what are these levels? They're called basic and enhanced. Each agency is designated a level of access with TE, depending on licensure agreement with CASAS. CASAS control groups is independent of license package. Data managers are the exception. Remember, data managers are part of the CASAS control group, but they can be separated by basic or enhanced. Again, based on licensure agreement with CASAS. There are access groups that has their own basic or enhanced capabilities, such as TE teacher, TE access, and TE admin access. So in the live demo, you will see that teacher TE access may have a basic or enhanced assigned to them. The same can be said for TE admin access. Oops. So what is a data manager? So looking at this pyramid, this hierarchy, once an agency is set up, one data manager is appointed in TE. The data manager oversees users, accounts, and has the most rights in TE. Hence, this is why the data manager is at the top of this pyramid in terms of access rights levels. They have the most rights, and it trickles down from there. So TE admin access has the second most, basic TE access third, teacher, and then below here is the CASAS controlled groups. They have the least access rights in TE. The data manager can make changes to user access rights, create new access groups, and augment menus and data access. So what is a TE admin and personnel? TE admins usually have the second most access rights, just lower than data managers, as we saw in the previous slide. TE admins are agency controlled, and the data manager can adjust rights. However, in their access, rights can't surpass their data managers. So this is important. Whatever the data manager doesn't have in terms of access rights, TE admins can't have that also. So TE admins can't ever surpass the data manager's rights. Personnel. So personnel is a little different than user accounts, but if we do have enough time during the training, we'll go over a little bit of personnel. Personnel could be teachers or other faculty employees. They don't necessarily need to use TE. How does this fit into TOPSpro though? So personnel can be linked to create a user account and linked to a class. So if a teacher has their own class, they can be linked together. So I see a question from Maureen. Does TE assign the data manager? This would go through the Go Live team. Once your agency talks to the Go Live team, there's a process where one person would be the data manager, and it's actually not automatic. It's a manual process through CASAS does that for you. So moving on here, the 3-state model. So if you look at the center right here, this is checkboxes that will show the access rights for each category. So the shaded box is called the inherited checkbox. It means that it's getting their access rights from another source. So you will see in the live demo that there are some shaded boxes. It means there are other access rights going on that it's going to be inherited from. So if we move to the bottom here, the check mark will be what's granted to as far as access rights. And then if we move down, we're going to see empty boxes. It just means that it's denied. There's no access rights going on for that user. So these would the check mark and the empty one is a little bit more straightforward than the shaded one. The shaded one, we want to know where that's coming from. Another source is giving its rights to inheritance. All right, moving on. So ET proctors and coordinators. We're going to talk about a little bit about this. So newly certified proctors and coordinators must notify their data managers once completion of training. Data managers are responsible for adding proctors and coordinators once completion of training has been verified. Login credentials are created manually. Okay, so this is the access rights for each group of CASAS controlled groups right here. So we have proctors, coordinators and proctors, and techs. So if we look at the access group and the access rights right here, these check marks means that these groups has access to this right here. So access console management. Access console management is this whole website for e-testing. Once you log into eTests, you will see the access management console. All the proctors, coordinators, proctors, and techs have access to this. Moving down from there, we have edit sessions. So only coordinators and proctors have access to that. So this edit button right here would be a clickable option if you have coordinator and proctor set up for your access rights. Techs and proctors don't have that. Initiate or confirm station registration. So this is actually a little outdated. What happened was when COVID had the school shut down and everything, CASAS had to find a way to make the registration of computers a lot easier. So now you only need one proctor, coordinator, or proctor to register a computer. Back then, prior to COVID, we needed two. We needed two authorized users, proctor, coordinator, to sign off on a registered computer. So now it's been a lot easier to register a computer, and this is probably why the group text right here, it is a little outdated and a little obsolete, because that was one value for the text, that they didn't need a confirmation for registration. Supervised test administration. So proctors can start or stop a test. Coordinators can't. Coordinators and proctors can. So it's the start button right here, so they can start and stop it. unregistering station. So if you ever have clicked on take a test in eTests, you can register your computer that way. But to unregister it, if you click on testing station, you will see the unregister button right here. Proctors can't do that. Coordinators, coordinator proctor, and techs can do that. All right, any questions so far, guys? Okay, moving on. So what are sites? Sites are part of the organizational structure of an online account and represent physical locations where testing, instruction, and training take place. Sites may serve learners in multiple instructional programs. Agencies may add sites to their online account at any time. A site has the option to be an eTest site, and we're going to take a look at this in the next portion of the training here. There's an option for it to be an eTest or not. Agency and sites are called containers in TE. And we're going to go into that a little bit on this next slide. So in TE, data is mostly organized by parent and child records. So in this case, an agency container is considered the parent record, which is also the primary record in TE. The record that follows it is called the child record. This notion also includes student records and also class records, not just agency and site. So you guys will hear this quite often in other training with Summer Institute, but this is how TE has its data organized, mainly by parent and child records. Okay, guys, so in the next portion, we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to be using the Rolling Hills database. And I highly recommend you guys use it. You guys don't have to use it now, but this is a show and tell, so you guys can just follow along and not be able to get left behind if you guys do decide to use it. It is a fictitious server. Definitely use it to your advantage because you can delete records, create and update records. The server resets every night. So you guys can use it every day and it'll go back into its original state. In Rolling Hills, there are multiple data managers so that multiple users can use the Rolling Hills server at once. Keep in mind that this goes against what I said earlier, but with Rolling Hills, we need multiple data managers because a lot of people are using different accounts at once. So hence, that's why we have different data managers. Okay, so don't be alarmed when we jump into the training and you guys see multiple data managers, okay? And it's for practicing. Practice and more practice. You guys can definitely use this to your advantage. So I want to bring in a little pop culture here. There's a little known movie back in the 90s, a really iconic film called The Matrix. I'm sure the majority of you guys have seen The Matrix or at least heard about it. So there's a scene in The Matrix where Neo, the protagonist, is connected to a simulation. This simulation uploads programs into his mind. These programs are martial arts programs, such as Kung Fu, Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu. When the simulation is done uploading, he has learned a new skill. Well, what's the point in all this? Well, I thought it'd be cool to talk about the Matrix and simulation, but the main point is that you guys can learn a new skill using this simulation anytime, 24/7. Unfortunately, you guys won't learn martial arts, but I promise you guys will be more proficient in TE. And there it is. He knows Kung Fu. And if you guys have not seen The Matrix, please watch it. You guys will be entertained, but really confused. All right, guys, any questions? So that is the PowerPoint section of this training. We're gonna jump into the, and I saw Oscar is there, Morpheus quote. Oh, how I miss movies from the 90s. All right, guys, so we're gonna jump into the next training here, unless we have any questions. Any questions about that? Okay, so we're gonna go into the rolling hills now. Actually, you know what? I wanna show you guys how to get here. So it is through, whoops, that's a lot of information there. Okay, so it's gonna be on the eTests site. You guys can go through to any web browser to get to the eTests website. So I can type in etestsonline.org. And this is where eTests, you will administer tests to students, but also you can download the TE client here. So you can click on this upper left-hand corner button and it'll download. You will have the application on your computer. And it's gonna look like so. I'm using the login credentials for the Rolling Hills. So the password would be admin. Okay, so this is a start page. Just see it as like a bulletin. Any updates or anything new you will see on the start page. What we're gonna do is, okay, so I'm gonna close this out for now. We're gonna go into access groups. So to get into access groups, it would be under organization. And then we'll go into access groups. So this is called a lister. A lister is just simply list all your records here. You have all your columns. It looks like an Excel file. You're gonna have available listers for different categories, student demographics, even users later on. We're gonna explore that. But on this lister, we have usable in child containers, which means that, remember the wording, child containers. So it's accessible in sites. Well, how many sites are there for this agency? So we're at the Rolling Hills agency right now. If we click on this dropdown, we'll see the sites available. So we have one site available. It's called North Campus. So all of these right here, all of these groups are accessible with North Campus and also at the agency level. So we're gonna take a look into Enhanced, TE Admin Access Enhanced. I'm gonna collapse this for now so it looks a little less confusing. We're gonna go one by one with the access group identification first. We're gonna expand it. And this is, it's gonna display the group name and then the users available. If I click on the edit icon here, we're gonna have the users available here. So these are the 4 users right now who has this. And this is a special case since Summer Institute is going on. We kind of programmed it so that we have 4 users using this. but you can add users, more users if you want. And if you click this drop down, you will see all the users on here. And you can give them TE admin access enhanced if you want. So if I want administrator 00, we can click add, and now administrator 00 is in the TE admin access enhanced group. And again, this is where the usable and child containers is clickable if you want it on or off. You can make it not usable in child containers, or you can make it usable in child containers. We're gonna collapse that and move on to the next one. So menu access rights, we're gonna click on the edit mode. And as you can see here, these are all in this 3-state model, we have check marks here. Check mark means that these are open and accessible for any of these menu options here. The ones that are blocked out means that it doesn't pertain to this access group. And as we can see here, the majority of these, since this is an enhanced group, we have a large options of menus to choose from. And most of these are just checked off. And again, these are blocked out because the group is not pertaining to California. California has their own options here. So those are the menus. I'm gonna collapse that and go to the containers now. Remember, so the containers are the sites and the agencies. So remember, if it's shaded like this, it means it's inherited. So inherited comes from a different source. So that source is actually coming from this checkbox. Since it is checked off, and you won't even see it actually. If you uncheck it, it just means that it's also being inherited from this option. I'll leave that on. It just now North Campus can use this this group. And so now we'll go into the meat of access rights here. We have all these access rights available to us since this is TE admin. I'm going to open this up in edit mode, and there's a ton of access rights available. I see a question from Dana. Does that mean we have access or do not have access based on inherited? It's the latter. So it would be you do not have access based on inherited, based on what is from the other source. So if we take a look at these data access rights, so we have different categories here. We have list, view, create, update, and delete records. We have a lot of rights available to us. Actually, all of it. Again, this is a special case because Summer Institute, but you can uncheck some of these if you want. And this is the data manager's ability to do. If you want to uncheck these, you can uncheck it off fully if you don't want this group to have the opportunity to update records. Delete records, also you can uncheck that if you don't want that. So these are all the access groups here, access rights. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna split the screen up. And I'm gonna show you guys the difference between basic and enhanced, okay? So we're gonna go access groups. We're gonna look at basic access here. I'm gonna go put it on the other side. Remember, we have all these access right here available to us, but let's take a look. And these are all the users that has TE basic access. I'm gonna take a look at the data part of it, open that up, and look at that. So there's not a lot of access rights available to us. TE admin enhanced has a lot of access rights available to us, but not basic access. And I am actually logged into TE admin access. If I close this down for a second, we can see all these rights available to us, right? All of these are clickable. Look at how many access rights are available to us for these menus. Let's take a look at the basic access. So I'm gonna disconnect here for a second. I'm gonna go into one of the basic view user account here. So if you ever want to use the Rolling Hills, the first title of this user would be the password also. So the password would be coordinator. It's stuck there for a second. I'm gonna close this down. And reopen that up again. Coordinator, password coordinator. We're gonna take a look at the available options for us, okay? The menus. So remember, this is basic access. Any questions so far, guys, while this is loading up? Okay, so I'm gonna open that up, accept that. Okay. Let me take a look at the menus here. Look at that. So all of these are grayed out now based on those access rights. And basic access, I believe, is mainly for viewing. You can't really update any records at all. So if you actually try and go to student demographics and look at that, we can't even create a new student. So if we take a look at, let's say, Jesus here for an example here, we can't update anything at all. It's all blocked out because of those access rights. Even if I try and do an entry, let's see if that works. Yeah, see that? So you do not have the necessary access rights to create records of this type. Please contact the application administrator for further information. That means it's just to contact the data manager to give you more access rights. Okay. So I'm going to disconnect for now. You can actually log in as a proctor also. So we'll try that out for a second here. So we'll go Proctor 1. Again, the password is the first title of the user account. So we'll log in. So proctors can log into TE, but they only have limited access. They can see students and test results only. Everything else they can't have access to. Look at that. And you can also do this for coordinators too. I'm going to skip that part for now. We're going to go into user listers. So I'm going to go back into the administrator account. Administrator 1. There's a typo there. Hey guys, are you guys still with me?
Yeah.
I apologize. I just lost the Zoom connection here. I thought I lost it, but okay. I'm glad you guys are still with me. All right, so we are back into the administrator account here. You guys have any questions so far? Any questions at all? Okay, so back to TE here. We are in the TE admin, and we have this is data manager access rights. So we have the highest level of data management. So we're going to go into the user listers. It is under organization and users. This is a lister right here. It has all of the available records of data managers. Remember on the PowerPoint, I said we're going to have a lot of data managers, and this is for our customers to use. So there's a ton of data managers to use. And we have ET coordinator, Proctor, TE admin, and these are all available to use. Okay, so we can add columns and to see what we want to know about these logins. So we can see the last time login for these accounts. It's going to show right there. So you can see the last time that I logged in with this account was at 9:49. So if you right click, you will see more options available. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over how to add a new user, and it is this new button right here. If I click on that, if I collapse this, then open this up, expand it. So we have containers. Remember containers, again, agency, site. We can select our user to be at the agency level or at the site level, okay? So we have the ability to put them at the agency or site. If they are set at the site, they can only access the site. They can't access the agency. If you're at the agency, you can access all the sites. In this case, you can access, if there are more sites than North Campus, you can access all of them. User account, I can just make a test. Usually when you set up an account the first time, you would have to give a temporary password, and then you can do password should be changed so that your user can set their own password. And this is the groups right here. Going over all those groups, we can click on the drop down and see what we want to give to this user. I forgot to mention this, but the user account should have one agency controlled and one CASAS controlled access group maximum. So they can't have, let's say, ET coordinator and then another. And it's going to ask you for a certification right here, verification. You want to click yes. You can't have, let's say, admin access enhanced, and then we're going to add another one that says, let's say, basic access. So look at that. So you can't have more than one because they conflict with each other. So make sure the one that you want has the most access for your user. So if I want to give enhanced to this user, I can do that. And then remember, inheritance is all coming from these groups, okay? I don't want to edit any of these because it's all inherited. You will see that it's all inherited right there. And it's coming from the group rights, ET coordinator and T admin access. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna save. Whoops. Okay, so we'll do test, last name test. Test.com. And there we go. So now we just created a user account called test. So if we look back on our lister, we will see that user right here. Okay, so that's creating a user account. So now we're going to go into site.
Did you have a real quick? Did you have a question, Randy, or did you need a?
Any questions, guys? We're pretty good on time. So we're going to go into sites now, creating a new site. And we would start from organization. And then we click on site. Again, our lister right here shows all the records available for us to view. In this case, we have North Campus site, ID 01, eTest site yes. And I'm going to show you guys how to disable that and not make it an eTest site. But also this lister, you can add more columns if you want. You can right click and add address, city. In this case, I'm going to add a new site. So in the left-hand corner, I'm going to click on new site. And I'm going to collapse this. Okay, so our site would be at which container? We'll do at the agency. So since you could also do subsites too. So this site can be a subsite from North Campus. But usually we have the container set as agency. And then from there, we'll look at site identification. So site ID, we can do 02 for this example. And then site name, we can do test site. Time zone, we'll leave it at specific time here. eTest site. It has a default as being inherited, but you can disable it or you can allow it. In this case, I'm going to allow it so we can see an example of this being an eTest site. Site contact, totally optional if you want to do this. In this case, I'll type in, a name here. Okay, so all that's done, and we'll click save. And now we just created a new site. So if we go back onto our lister, we have site 02 ID test site is eTest site yes, and contact name is John Doe. We go back here, we can make edits if we want. But yeah, also we have as I mentioned earlier, we can make subsites also. Okay, so if you guys ever need to do that, we can. We have a good amount of time left. I'll briefly touch on personnel since I mentioned it in the PowerPoint. And this is a little separate from user account, but I can show you how that works. So if we go to organization, we'll go into personnel and then registration. And all of these are faculty members, personnel, usually teachers, and they have their own personnel ID. A personnel ID is randomized. You can give a random personnel ID to your faculty member. So if we click on new to create a new personnel, we have the ability to link it with an existing user. So let's say a teacher is also a user with TE. I'm going to click on link with existing user. Okay, and now it asks what's the user account on TE. So what I can do is, remember I made a new user account. I'm going to bring that in and say that, okay, this is the same user, but this is also a personnel that's going to be in TE. So it's going to populate automatically for user account, last name, and then first name. And from there, we can click save. Oh, personnel ID. Again, we can randomize anything. And so now we just created a personnel information. So we look back here on our personnel lister. We have our new personnel test with personnel ID. So what's the point of all this? So you can actually, once you have your personnel, you can set up this teacher into a class. So to do that, we can go into, let's see. So we can do functional roles, and then we can create a new functional role for this teacher. And this is linking that class with the teacher. So we click on new, and we have, it's gonna automatically populate 007 as the personnel. And then you can bring in the class definition. Which class is this? So I wanna click basic math. So this teacher is gonna be in class definition 010315, okay, as a teacher. And the start date, I'll give it the default start date, July 1st, 2020. And we'll click save. And so now this teacher is in this class definition. So it means that this teacher is going to be teaching this class. And so now that teacher can see any records if they are given a user account in TE. They can see their reports or class test results for those students. Any questions there, guys?
There's a couple, yeah. So when you create the site does last forever. So I don't know what you mean by recreate or reuse.
You mean make it an eTest site or not, or disable it?
Yeah. So you're trying to change the name. It would change the, yeah. If you create a site and then want to change it, it will change to the new one. That you can't have like
absolutely
2 0-1s.
You mean go back and edit the name?
Yeah, that's what she was saying.
Okay. Yeah, you can always go back and edit the name if you want. It's not set in stone, but the site ID has to be unique. It can be, there can be 2 site IDs that has the same number in them. You can go back and make it disable it as an eTest site, or you can go back and allow it to be an eTest site later on. One thing I'd like to go over actually is what happens when an employee leaves the agency, and how do we deal with that with their account? So if we go into organization and we go into users, let's say administrator 01 has left the agency, and now, you know, what do we do? Do we delete that account? We always advise not to delete account. So one thing that we can do is to just disable it. And the reason why we recommend not deleting is that there are records attached, previous records from the past attached to these accounts, so that we know where these records are coming from and these changes are coming from. If we click on this edit, so we have the user identification heading here. If we click on edit, we can click on is disabled. Check that off and click save. Since I'm logged into administrator 01, I'm making this change on 01. This message will show up because it's saying that you're making these changes to yourself. You won't get this message if you're making changes to users or your other colleagues. Just keep that in mind. You want to click yes. And so if we go back, we're going to see now is disabled. And this person can't go back into their account unless the new data manager goes back in and check that off. Click save. Again, this message will pop up. Another scenario would be granting a new temporary password. So let's say administrative one, or we'll do another example here. So we'll say that coordinator 01 or coordinator 01 forgot their password. And then we'll click on the edit icon there. What we can do is we can click on change password. Just give like a simple temporary password to this user. In my case, I just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I want password change should be saved or should be changed. I'm sorry, and then click save, and we'll watch what happens when I log into that account. So coordinator 1 at rhas.org. Remember the password is coordinator. Again, it gets stuck there. We'll try that one more time. Coordinator 1, password coordinator. Oh, password. Okay. I totally forgot about that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So that's the temporary password. Okay. Watch what happens here. It's going to have this message pop up. It's just saying that we need to give a password to this user. So old password would be the temporary password I just made. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. New password, I'll just make any password. I'll type in password, and save. And password has been changed. And so now that is the new password for coordinator 1. All right, guys, any other questions here? We do have some time left, about 5 minutes. Any last minute questions? Any questions for you, Luke, or anything you want to add? Let me get off the screen sharing for now.
So as I guess there's a question of why they don't want to delete records, or not users, I should say, deleting users. It's not recommended just because as that user's history and having them in the system, that's why we kind of keep it recommended to just leave it in there just in case you ever need to go back. But yeah, that's why.
Yeah, absolutely. So the programmers recommend not doing that because we have all these records from the past, and it's better to just disable it than delete records. Of course, there are scenarios where you blatantly made a record that just doesn't make sense at all. In that case, yeah, definitely. But sometimes it's better to just leave it as is. Any other questions, guys? We again we have some time here.
Hello, Tyler. If a teacher has more than one class, we can add that teacher multiple times.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thanks.
So we'd go through the class definition. Granted that they're already in the personnel record, as we went over earlier. Once they're created in personnel, you can add them in multiple classes. So yes, definitely. Good question there. Any other questions, guys? Otherwise, we're finished here. Luke, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. Please. Thanks, Tyler. Please remember to complete your session evaluation. You can complete the evaluation through the rate session button on the session page or through the surveys tab on the main navigation. Thank you guys. Again, we've got a few more minutes if you have any more questions. But in the next sessions.
Sorry, Luke, to interrupt you there, but Rick does have a question here. Every user should have 2 access rights, agency and CASAS. That's a good question. It's not required, Rick, but the maximum is 1 CASAS controlled and 1 agency controlled access rights. They can't have more than 1. It's not required though. They can just simply have ET Proctor, or they can simply have TE admin.
I have a question.
Yes.
So it's only 2 of us here. So when we both get locked out, it's kind of hard to figure out who can, because it tells us both we don't have access to give the permissions to reset the password. So it's kind of hard trying to find somebody that when we both get locked out, how to get back in there. So we have to send emails, and sometimes it takes about 2 weeks for somebody to finally respond. So how come one of us can't have that permission?
That's a really good question. So what I learned just a few days ago was that you can actually set another admin up for the ability to change access groups or give user access rights. So it's not solely on the data manager, actually. So the data manager can set that up. Initially, when an agency is set up, the data manager has that right only, but the data manager can set that up for another TE admin access to have that ability also.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. She doesn't have the permissions to give me access to do that. So we were trying to figure out who gives that access, and they keep saying she has the access, but we've tried numerous times. She doesn't have the access.
Right.
So
Okay.
neither one of us have access to say, go in and reset your password.
And who is the data manager at your agency?
Karen Pearsall.
Okay. Karen, right, you said?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you give us a call with tech support, and we'll discuss that. Okay. After the training.
Okay.
I think it's something we can definitely look into.
Okay.
All right.
And when you call us, just stay on and say, we've tried it. So make sure we actually go through a test session to make sure.
Yeah.
Because yes, you might have it or it might not, but we'll test it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll definitely help you out with that. I'll provide the phone number below here. There we go. Other than that, guys, it's been a real pleasure. You guys are great. I'm really happy to do this. This is the first one ever. As I said, this is something different, remote, but it's going to be really close to my heart. I hope you guys had a good training, and I hope you guys had fun with this one. Thank you, guys. Luke, you can stay on if you want. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Teresa.
Make sure to stop recording, I think, right?
Yeah.
And then that should, I think, auto.